Hey guys. We're here for you. We're here for you for an hour and 15 minutes. I just want to really quickly. The suspense is killing me too. How does it feel to be in a room without any cell service for 15 or 20 minutes? What's that like? You guys had to start talking to each other and making friends. Who knows where this will lead? I just have to plug in my laptop. Very important. Okay. Okay. All right. Hello. Welcome. Sorry for the wait. Sure. Great. Welcome to Open House. We do this event annually. We are a very small school, which we'll talk a little bit about today here at the Yale School of Art. And we have an incredibly small team, which allows us to really be focused on our students all the time, but does not allow us to open our doors for tours and info sessions regularly. So I'm sure you all know that. We do this event once a year, as well as an open studios event in April, and those are really the times where you can come in and see what our students are doing and learn about the program. The Yale School of Art is the oldest and also leading university of art in the United States within a university. We were founded in 1869 as a coeducational offering instruction in painting, sculpture, drawing, architecture, and also criticism in the history of art. We're actually celebrating our 150th anniversary this year. And it's also the anniversary of the first women at Yale, as the School of Art was the first school, professional school within the university to enroll women. So we are very proud to be consistently ranked the #1 MFA program in the country. I'm Taryn Wolf. I'm the Assistant Dean for Academic Affairs here at the school. I'm very connected to students in meaningful ways. I work with them from the very beginning in the admission process all the way through to commencement. It's a very unusual setup, but it is what we do here. And so my very small team of 3, we really are there kind of every step of the way while students are enrolled. Before I get any further, I just want to tell you what you have been looking at. So every year for major events that we do, such as commencement and open house and orientation, we have our students from our graphic design program design the identity and all of the materials and digital assets for our events. And so this particular open house, we had 2 second-year students, which are Sam Wood and Tuan Pham, who did this wonderful design. Actually, Sam was at the beach this morning shooting that live feed that you saw. And let's see, the time is 12:18 and 11 seconds. And this live stream of the ocean from the Lighthouse Point, which you were watching, in New Haven, they ask, have you ever gone to the beach when no one is really there? And suddenly this thing you were familiar with looks new again. So thank you to Sam and Tuan for making this awesome identity. Our dean, Marta Kuzma, unfortunately could not be here today. So I'm going to be sharing with you some of her remarks that she prepared, and she does send her regards. Dean Kuzma, she is the first woman dean. Marta is a curator, a writer, and a critic who has been serving as the school's first woman dean for the past 4 years. This is her 4th year currently. The school is, as I said, in its 150-year history, and we are celebrating our 150th anniversary this year in 2019. The dean respects the strides achieved within the women's movement, though she knows there is still much to challenge and struggle for. The dean continues to foster a community of students and faculty as one that is diverse and open-minded. So Marta teaches a course for first-year students called Critical Practice, and it's the first course that students will begin taking when they come to the school. We enroll 60 new incoming students a year in all 4 of our programs, and everyone takes this course together. And the dean leads critical practice as an area of study which lends ways to cope and function as a practicing artist amid a highly dysfunctional world. The course evolves and changes over the course of the year, and she works with a thread of artists and theorists and philosophers who are critical to the backbone of this course. Some of those people who return every year are people such as Fred Moten, Andrea Fraser, Hito Steil, Stefano Harney, Peter Osborne, Walid Rad, and Rizvana Bradley. This year, she also has some other visiting faculty coming in as well, such as Denise de Ferreira de Silva, A.L. Steiner, who teaches here at the school, but not always in critical practice, and Angie Kiefer. And as a mandatory course, things start off simple. It's really based in learning, really establishing your relationship as a student to research, especially in a university like Yale. Each student is asked to consider how their work reflects universal conditions around their personal concerns and to locate a meaningful critical context within their practices. And that really kicks off in the very first semester that you're here. So through readings, discussion groups, and seminars, this is a way for you to connect with the dean, connect with each other, and have an experience as one large group. So critical practice is just one tiny piece of the curriculum that our students take, and we'll get into that breakdown. But obviously, you are admitted into the school here, into one of 4 programs: painting, graphic design, photography, or sculpture. And we're going to get into here in this session, right now at 12 o'clock, we're going to get into really more of the nuts and bolts of applying to Yale. And then we'll have a chance to talk with our DGSs, and they'll tell you a little bit about the experience that they have running the committees that review all the applications. And then we will break out into groups, as you know, at 2 o'clock. And there you're going to learn a lot more about the individual departments that we have here at Yale and how they function pedagogically, as well as the students and the faculty that are in there and what's happening in the programs. You'll have a chance as well to walk around and see some student studios or their workspaces, which is again, a once-a-year opportunity, and ask questions, in particular of the way that the programs are structured and the kinds of work and structures around critique and feedback and thesis development that are in those programs. Later this evening, we are having the closing of our first-year show. We have an annual first-year and second-year show at the beginning of the year. This year, the show is curated by A.L. Steiner, and we welcome you to stick around for the closing of that in the Green Hall Gallery. So we are at the UAG, as you know now. This is the Yale University Art Gallery. We normally do this event at our main building in the graphic design atrium, so we stuff like 300 chairs into a big workspace. So this year we tried to make it a little bit easier on the department and not have so many people over there, but we will be at the end of this kind of distributing the groups one by one, so when we get to the end, we have a process that we're gonna spell out. So again, my name is Taryn Wolf. As I mentioned, I already introduced myself. Yale, as an art school posited within a research university, there's Many wonderful things about that. There's things that make it very specific kind of experience, aside from a standalone art school. But we really are our own entity, within the university. We enroll over 12,000 students as a university every year, and more than half of that is graduate and professional students. So institutionally, we're almost at about 7,000 graduate students. These students work across 14 graduate and professional schools, everything from medicine and engineering, divinity, law, architecture, music, drama, nursing. The list goes on to our Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, which is one of our largest graduate schools, and that's where we have a lot of our humanities and PhD programs. And then we also, our entire student body represents about 118 different countries. And in the School of Art, we have 128 students currently enrolled. So that's just a kind of a space and place snapshot at kind of where our students fit in with the larger university. So some of the wonderful perks that come with being in a school like Yale are the incredible collections and museums that are part of the institution, as well as many cross-disciplinary labs, and we'll talk a little bit about how we dabble in that. But here at the University Art Gallery, there's an incredible collection. If you have a chance later, the museum is open until 8 tonight, so you can check that out. Just across the street is the Yale Center for British Art, which is another world-renowned museum. And then the Beinecke Books and Manuscripts Library is incredible. The building is really something to behold. All of these amazing parts of Yale, so I hope you, on this very chilly day, get a chance to stroll around and get a sense of just how vast it is. And some of you may be coming from a university background. We do enroll students from a whole range of academic backgrounds. Some come to us with BFAs, many do not. And so, again, from all over the world. So we see a real range of the experience that students bring. In addition to the art galleries and resources and library collections, which are so vast, the Center for Collaborative Arts and Media is really an all-school university lab and place for experimentation across different media genres. And then the Center for Engineering and Design is one where students are building, robotics and Arduinos and a whole range of very much engineering-based prototypes and such. We also have the Yale Farm, which is incredible. Marta, the dean, brings her class there to harvest a few times in the semester, which is very calming, I suppose, when you're studying lots of intensive critical theory. So again, our 4 programs, our 4 areas of study are listed here, and obviously you are all here because you're interested in one or more of them. The graphic design program has a program called the Prelim, which is where students can come in without a formal undergraduate training in design, and they can do a 3-year program. The rest of our students who come into the design program study, like the rest of the programs, in a 2-year course. So we bring in a small number as prelims and a small number into the first year, and that number joins the prelims from the year before. And that's kind of how that works. But to give you a sense of the size of our programs, we enroll between 20 and 20 new students a year in painting and printmaking. We enroll 10 new students a year in photography and 11 new students per year in sculpture. And then graphic design, it's around 6 and 8 coming in, and we graduate about 18 students per year in graphic design who would have been here for 2 or 3 years. As far as our academic requirements, they really vary by program. So, of course, we recommend that whatever program you're interested in, you go online and look at the curriculum for that program as well as the application requirements. We'll talk about them today, but you can always refer back to our wiki, which is our wonderful website that is a community collaborative experiment at all times. But our students earn 60 units to get their MFA, mostly over the course of 2 years. They complete between 42 and 48 core credits in the area of study, which again includes that critical practice course that the dean teaches. And then we also have our students do 18 elective credits, which gives you that flexibility to take coursework around the school and across the university. We do require 2 courses or 6 units to be done completely out of the School of Art. And then as far as the faculty and curricular approaches, as I mentioned, this is all going to be gone over when we break out into programs, but we have been having a lot more all-school workshops and visiting artist lecture series that are programmed by our dean since her arrival. Each program has a core faculty group, so this will be a group of individuals who are either tenured professors or full-time senior critics who are here every year with that continuity, but many of the programs also have a structure of visiting critics, core critics, cold critics, which are people who come in just for reviews that haven't seen your work before. Sheila DeBrettville and the way that she runs her program, she has incredible designers coming from all over the world who are coming in to teach 2-3-week workshops, and some of them have been coming for 30 years. So there are many, many faculty, over 100 at the School of Art. And then depending upon the programs, photography, sculpture, and painting have similar structure of weekly critiques that are open to the whole school community. All 4 programs have weekly visiting artist lectures or regular visiting artist lectures. And we also have, you take credits in like individual criticism as well as you go through the curriculum. So I'm going to focus mostly on applying to the school, and that's part of what I do in my role is I work with my 2 staff to facilitate all the applications and all of the review processes with our faculty committees. So the first thing to know is that our faculty make all of our admission decisions here at Yale. So if I know you, I can't really help you. And yeah, so that used to be different now. But the School of Art application process really does require a high degree of commitment. So I would recommend to everyone to start early and finish early. And I have some interesting stats for you just on that subject, which we will get to soon. But generally, applicants should hold a bachelor's degree from an accredited college or university, or a diploma from a 4-year accredited professional art school. That we see that as well. Very occasionally, students have come to the School of Art without those credentials, but it is very rare. We don't have specific prerequisites within the admission process other than that. So you don't have to take a GRE. If you are a non-native English speaker and you did not attend an English speaking undergraduate course, you do have to submit a TOEFL. But in either case, admission to the School of Art is selective and it's on a competitive basis. So applications for fall 2020 must be submitted no later than 11:59 on January 10th. We've moved our deadline back. It used to be January 4th. We gave you a whole nother week. I am hoping, I don't really pray much, but I am hoping that you guys will, in that week, just have plenty of more time to get your applications in. Applicants are notified of the admission committee's decision as to preliminary selections in early February. Now, what does that mean? Very thirsty. So, once your applications come in, we really hit the ground running. Our faculty, our committees are back, they're starting school, they're registering students, and they're reviewing portfolios, statements, all of the things that are part of your application, which we'll get to in a minute. But essentially, we start right away, and then we turn decisions around within really a month, because we do require an interview phase for finalists to come and meet with our faculty and show work in person, et cetera. So what we do is at the end of February, we release decisions, which would include all of our regrets, so sorry it didn't work out this year, and then all of the invitations to the interview process. So we give applicants about 3 weeks notice to plan their trip to New Haven. To apply for more than one area of study, which you can do and people do, you do have to actually completely apply twice. So all of your forms and credentials, your fee, your portfolio, everything needs to be submitted separately, just as an FYI. So to make a complete application, you just complete the online form, which is on Slate. You pay a $100 fee. That is non-refundable. It is also, unfortunately, non-negotiable. Transcripts of academic record from your undergraduate degree are actually, those can be uploaded as completely student unofficial copies. Just scan what you have, put that in the application. If you are invited to an interview, we will request that you send us your official transcripts, but you don't need to worry about that as an initial applicant. Portfolio of artwork, obviously. A one-page statement. The statement, we recommend that it addresses your influences, interests, the current direction in your work, a brief history of maybe how your identity connects to that work. We don't need your entire life story. There's not room for that. And if you like, you can talk about why you're looking at graduate school. But the statements should be brief. You know, we have to read a lot of them, and we really want to get down to the essence of what you're talking about. A resume or a CV or we get a lot of calls saying, is a resume a CV? Is that the same? Whatever you want. We just want to see what you're up to, what your history is with work, showing, education, et cetera. And then 3 reference letters. So these are really critical. We definitely pay a lot of attention to your letters, who's writing for you, what they have to say about their experience working with you. I highly recommend giving them. You should let them know now. If you're gonna ask them to write for you, ask now so that they have time to get those letters into us. References should really be people practicing or teaching in the field in which your application is made, attesting to your ability and competence in that field. And because the admission committee begins our reviews pretty immediately after the deadline, those time limitations do not give you a very large buffer to have your recommenders get their letters in. So while the letters can continue to be submitted after the deadline, but you won't know what day you're being reviewed, and we will go forward with your review with whatever is in your file. So please do make sure that you ask them to get that in. Also, do not start an application to the Yale Graduate School of Arts and Sciences. That is a different school than the Yale School of Art. So if you go on our website, which is art.yale.edu, it's on the program that you have, you will be directed to our application. Okay, so portfolio. Portfolio is probably the thing that we get the most phone calls about, which we get many, many phone calls. Maybe some of you have called us. Hello again. Let's say this. If you're in the process of uploading your pieces and you have questions about size or DPI or length, all on the website. If you have questions about what pieces you should select for your portfolio, it's very hard for us to help you with that. We're not looking at that work. We don't know you. We don't know the work. We actually don't give portfolio advisement. I think I mentioned to you in several communications, we will not do portfolio reviews here today. Please don't ask, someone always does. But we're not gonna be able to do that. And we really aren't equipped to give you advice on specific pieces in your portfolio we're not familiar with. We get these questions all the time. The guidelines for applying are guidelines. Ultimately, we really recommend that you trust yourself as artists and as makers of this work to document it in a way that is, has integrity with the work as it was made. If you have very technical questions about the way things are cropped, whatever, I think you guys can trust yourselves to make those decisions. You can still call us. We love talking to you, but just know that a lot of those phone calls will result in us telling you to trust your inner self. The portfolio should represent images of your best work or your strongest work, should indicate your current direction that your practice is taking, as well as demonstrate your experience and your ability. We recommend that at least half of the images represent work that is recent. And each of the programs has very specific guidelines for their for what they're actually looking for. Most of the programs ask for 20 images, some painting asks for 16. And then there's also this element in the application called the representative image. I just want to clear that up. The representative image is something that is built into the application system. It's basically the image it puts on the front page of your application. But the painting program asks you to indicate that they're actually looking at which item you select for that, because they will kind of reference back to that image in the review process, where the other programs, it's not as critical for them which one you say is your representative image. So just if that's helpful. So what else? Let's see. No composite images. This is our biggest pet peeve, you guys. I'm going to tell you why. A composite image is when you can't decide, when you can't boil it down to 20 things. And so you go, I'm going to take 40 things or 100 things and smash them into 20 images. And what happens is you open a slide and there's like 5 to 10 images on it. It does not work. It's very impossible to see. Please don't do it. We do see that a lot, and it has actually cost people, their admission, I would say. So be sure that each image is clearly 1 to 2 things. If the 2 things go together, you can have them on there, but do not jam pack or put many, many pages of a publication in one single image. And only include detail shots if you deem them to be absolutely necessary. We can talk more about portfolios when we get the directors up here. So application requirements and statistics. This is really fun, you guys. So as of January 3rd, 2019, the day before our deadline last year, there were roughly 2,300 applications started for fall 19. Less than 300 had been submitted, day before the deadline. As of the closing of our office at 4 o'clock on Friday, January 4th, just over 500 applications had been submitted. So between 4 o'clock and midnight, we got like 700 applications. So that's crazy. And then between 12:01 on Friday night and 9 a.m. on Monday morning, we got I can't tell you how many emails we got from people. I can't get it, it wouldn't work, I couldn't upload my images. So just, it's important to know that, you don't want to be that person who didn't get it in, so please, go home and apply tomorrow. But really, our system becomes very overburdened when there are 700 people trying to upload images at the same time. It can take a little while, okay? So just work on it now, don't wait till the last minute. I think you get the point. Also, again, give your recommenders that time because nobody likes to be rushed. And it takes a long time to write a letter of recommendation if you're going to do a good one. You have to be really thoughtful about it. So, be kind to people in that way. Now, if you don't get your application in on time, just know we can see everything you're doing on the back end. And so if you call us and you tell us, why it didn't work, we can see, we can verify. We really would just prefer you get it in on time. Really very simple. So each year we invite approximately 15% of our applications to interview with the admission committee. And then from there we make final selections and extend admission offers to about 60 people. Now what we do here, which is very also unusual, I have an admission background from other art schools, so this kind of blew my mind when I got here, is we only admit the number of people that we have seats for. So if we're admitting 20 people to painting, we accept 20 people to painting. And if someone is unable to come and they decline their admission, then we will go out to a waitlist candidate, okay? Each program does create a wait list. It's in no specific order, depending upon who declines an offer. That sometimes happens, it sometimes does not. We will review the wait list and see kind of like where we want to fill in that gap. But that is to say, of that 2,300 applications that were started last year, about 1,200 applied. So over 1,000 people did not submit their application. I can tell you, having done admission for almost 20 years, you never know. You never know. So I do encourage you to apply if you're really interested and follow through on that application. Also, we do often see repeat customers, so we do have people apply more than once, or maybe they're waitlisted 1 year, or they apply again, and maybe they get in. So applications, again, you know the deadline. It's on your program. It's on your calendar, hopefully. We will notify you of the admission committee again in early February, that's right, and make more than one application if you plan to apply to 2 programs. Okay, so we are going to invite our directors up but before we do that, I just want to tell you about them really quickly. Our directors, so the way that our programs work is that one faculty really does steer the leadership of the program. This is probably not an unusual structure to any of you who went to undergraduate programs in the US. But they also are, all 4 currently of our directors of graduate study are also tenured professors. They're incredible artists and designers. And most, I mean, they're really legends within their field, and I love working with all of you guys. You're amazing. But Sheila DeBretteville of graphic design is really seen as a pioneer in the field of graphic design. Her practice reflects her commitment to feminist principles and open participation. Martin Cursells, who is the director of our sculpture department, challenges traditional interpretations of scale and tension to explore the role of performativity through a broad spectrum of enactments, both within and outside of visual art. Actually, before you guys came in here, he was playing some crazy soundtrack. What was that? You can tell us when you come up. It was jarring, but I liked it. Anoka Faruqi in the painting and printmaking department is also an incredible painter. I worked with I've known Anoka and Martin for a very long time. We go back to another institution. Anoka is just such a powerful voice also in the school with in terms of just like equity and the way that she teaches and having people feel like part of a community. And I love that she brings that to our work. She's also an incredible painter and color theorist. And then Gregory Crutzen in photography is someone whose work I first saw 20 years ago at the MoMA, who really makes these incredible photographs through film's critical tradition and with the respective portrayal of everyday American rituals and sight. They're among the members of the larger faculty, joined by other leading artists and art educators who really make up what this institution is about. And so you'll learn more about them in the program breakouts, and now they're gonna tell you a little bit about their experience working with students at the application phase. So let's welcome them up. And before we start with some questions, I'll just tell you the structure. So we're gonna have a little bit of a panel conversation, and then we'll take questions from the audience. And we're also live streaming this event out into the world, so we'll be taking some questions from the virtual audience as well. But before we do that, Sheila DeBretteville is going to just say a few words about the mark that she designed with Laura Coombs for the 150th anniversary of the school.
So,
Push this for the video.
okay.
But this is the.
So when Marta asked me, can you hear me? Okay? When Marta asked me if I would do a mark, I sort of resisted because it's not what I usually do. But then I saw an opportunity to make it more about the differences between people, because I really think that as much as we get our sense of community through what's similar, it's the richness of the differences, the way in which we are all different from one another. And certainly gender is one of those issues. But it used to be thought to be only male and female, but heavens, those traits are shared by everybody else: lesbians, gays, bis, trans, queers, and intersex people. So gender is no longer this simple thing, and so we can just get over it and go on with things. So the thing that we wanted to do was to Laura and I talked about this, and I said that I had used this slide for I think it's a decade by now, because I'm just so tired of being aligned only with women, because we're all sharing all these traits. So I said, let's just use the hue of pink to lavender to blue as a background, and then insert in it something that moves, and not make a mark which is just a straight one thing, but rather something which is continual. So this is what we came up with, which is to ask, whoops. There we go. Oh, so here it comes. So this is our mark. It just keeps going. It starts with different typographies, 150 different letter forms that have been designed by either faculty or students in the graphic design program that signify the ways in which we are different and the way in which we accept and enjoy and take pleasure in that difference. So enjoy. And please look on the website. I trust you to look there, because there's a wonderfully longer written thing by Lindsay about the website and why it is that way, and why we use the wiki, and why we make this level of difference, we honor it with such grace. Okay? So now get on to the rest of the stuff we want to talk about.
I think we're going to go back to the beach for this part.
Back to the beach.
Back to the beach. Is that working okay? I think so. Okay, great. Welcome. Thanks for coming. Are all your mics working?
I hope. I think so.
Maybe.
Can you hear me?
Hello.
Is that working? Okay.
We're getting a
great.
thumbs up from
Awesome.
Okay.
Hey, in the booth background. Hey, Ben, what you doing back there?
All right. So first, I'd just like to have you all share with our visitors what you think that the nuances are of, well, actually, let's start with this one. When do you believe that students are generally ready or prepared for grad school in the trajectory of their practice?
When they're in crisis with the work that they're doing, and they need to have it collapse a little bit. Maybe not crisis is too dramatic.
But it's very dramatic.
Yeah. Well, okay, but
Says
some
the
sort of-
performance artist.
Some sort of collapse and anxiety about it, and you come to school to meet a new cohort and to work with people and to have people talk about your work and try to get everything back.
I would agree with that, and I would also say the best and most productive time to go to graduate school is when you make the realization there's really no other option.
Can you guys hear?
And
Because
that,
you mean about your student debt?
yes,
Your undergraduate
that, you will not only commit to this as going to the art school, but also commit to this as an endeavor for your life's work. And that there's a clear understanding that you have an obsession and a desire to produce a body of work of some sort, and that, as I said, there's this is what your life's commitment is going to be, because there's certainly other maybe sort of easier ways to go through life than being an artist.
I could go with there are easier ways.
Yes.
But I don't think it's, you require any level of desperation.
Mhm.
It's more that you feel ready for change. You want to do something more and better than you have done already, and you want the help that's given here and the incredible university in which it takes place to make it easier for you to do that. I think it's actually harder in some ways for graphic designers because often you're coming with work that was either initiated by a teacher or by a client. And what we really ask you to think about and to do is to make at least one work that neither a teacher nor a client asked you to do, but you did because you really wanted to make it. And that gives us a sense of what it is you're trying to move toward. We don't expect it to be what you'll do in 2 years later. And as Karen mentioned, we have a preliminary year program which only has between 5 to 8 people. And that is because people who studied architecture suddenly decide, I don't want to be an architect. How do I become a graphic designer? Or I don't want to be an industrial designer, or I don't want to be this or that. I really want to have what the program offers, which is motion, interactivity, image making, and anything else that you're interested in doing. It happens in that 1 year, so that you can build your skill set and be as dexterous as the students who apply, who have been working for a while and really know what graphic design is, and just are fed up with being told what to do and want to do what they want to do. Because that's what you get to do here. You get to do what you really want to do. And you get better and better and better at it. And by the time you're here and graduate, you have a portfolio. There are 18 people who graduate. Everyone's portfolio looks nothing like any of the others. Everyone is uniquely a different person, and it's shown in the work that they do. That's a little bit harder for graphic designers to get there, but we get there every year.
And can you all hear me? Yeah, okay. A little closer? Closer, okay. I had to move it.
That's
Is that
better.
better?
Yeah.
Okay. Just to echo what Sheila's saying about having work where in your portfolio where you've set the terms. So, in order for us to sort of think about your readiness, or if it's the right moment for you to come to graduate school, we want to know what work you're making independent of, say, an assignment or a classroom assignment. So, if everything looks like it's similar to what you're saying about a client. If everything looks like it was, it's either so all over the place, or it really looks like there was a specific term that keeps shifting, like based on an assignment that was given by somebody else. Then we say, oh well, this person isn't ready yet. The work is not at that level yet. And then there's also, I think, the opposite that could be true if the work seems so complete and it's not asking questions. Maybe it sort of seems like that moment has passed for the artist, and that they're already kind of doing their thing without questioning and without an openness. So it really is that sweet spot that we're looking for, where you formed a vision, you formed an idea, you formed a set of terms, and you're working on your own terms, but there's still open questions, there's still experimentation, because we want artists, when they come here, to change and take risks and experiment, and not just continue to perfect, a kind of one avenue that they came in doing. Because we believe that the point of being in school is to be moved and to be changed, to be influenced, and to question and to be critical and to be self-critical. So we're also looking for that opening in the work. So it's a balance, I think. So you would know when you're ready if you feel that it's a moment in which you want to unpack and you want to open up and ask the questions and have other people. You have to be open to criticism.
Great.
Can I add one thing? The whole notion around differences and similarities, I think you can hear how we are similar. One of the ways that I think that there's a difference about graphic designers from my 3 colleagues, and their particular disciplinary differences, is that there is an audience there's a history of graphic design which is trying to reach people, other people. And so in a way where it sounds like it's a contradiction, that we're asking you to just do what you want to do, but in fact, the people who you are treating as your audience here at Yale are the other students who are here, and all the people who come. And so in that way, the notion that this work is going to reach and make life more, more livable or more understood or be more challenging, that activity has to include somebody besides you.
Great. I just realized too that obviously Sheila came up to the mic and introduced the mark that she made with our alumni Laura Coombs, but I didn't specify who each of you also are.
We do have our name
You do have
tags.
your name tags, but I don't know if people
I'm
can
Gregory.
read them. So that's Gregory
Yes.
and Anoka
I'm
and
Anoka.
Martin. Great. So Anoka, you started kind of talking to the next point, which is what are the nuances that make for a successful portfolio submission, and that is like what can people include or not include, or what's that kind of
Well, I
what's
think,
the secret sauce?
right, I mean, I think what you said about like, you know, you there is some editing, because within our department, it's 16 images. I think with the others, it's 20, so you do have to edit, and you have to edit and putting your best foot forward. Like you had said, put your best work, but you also want to show both the range and depth of your practice. And so you have to think about, what is my practice? What are the kind of terms of my practice? What are the outer limits of it? What do I care about now? What's most exciting to me now? And where do I see this going? And how do I put together a portfolio that sort of presents that, right? And I mean, it's a little bit different in the interview process, because we do, I don't know if I should jump ahead to that, but we always ask that people bring both finished works but also preparatory works, because of the, and that might be slightly different in the portfolio, where do preparatory works fit in, but everybody's practice is different. And I think if you've reached a kind of understanding of what is meaningful to you, you know, and you're telling a story of your work through the visuals. And so what is the story you want to tell? What is the, you know, to think about it as a kind of a visual essay, in a sense, of who you are, what you care about, what's most important to you now, and what direction you're going in.
Great.
But I do think that the images and the quality of the images is also very important to consider, particularly if you're like me and your photography skills are lacking. I always get support from other people who have those skills to document the work. So if you're not confident with the lighting and the shooting and the framing of the work, you should, you know, hire somebody to shoot the images for you. You may be very good at it, but we understand the digital image is not the work, but you want the digital image to most clearly translate what is about that particular work. And we do, I know within our portfolio we say include some context, but we're not talking about the entire, unless it's a site-specific work or where the architecture is. We want to see we want to see the shadow, we want to see the wall, etc. But we want to also be able to see the work. So sometimes people will, when we say include context.
Well, I wouldn't go too far,
Yeah.
because it's different in sculpture.
Yeah.
Like, so I wouldn't lay down
And it's also
that
different
specifically,
How is it
that it's specifically because a work exists in a space, and we might want to be able to see the space in order to give sense of scale. We might actually include people in it, again, to give scale, or, so it's different than paintings.
Right,
Let's
no,
put it that way.
And not everybody applies to our program with just discrete objects either. So I think that it's about what is the work and what are the boundaries of the work. So if the work is a rectangle on the wall, we want to sort of acknowledge the wall, but give primacy to that rectangle so that we can see it. If the work is a site-specific architectural installation, then you have to sort of depict the work. So think about what the confines and the limits of that particular work are, whether it's like a very kind of focused object or, so I'm just saying that, I'm not saying that, you can't present the room, I'm just saying if the work is a very focused object or discrete object.
No, I just didn't want this to be the situation where you've said this so well that
Right,
it becomes
yeah.
what people do.
Right, no, yeah, exactly. I mean, I think another point is that there's no one way.
There's no one way.
There's no like one size fits all or blanket statement I could make. It's really about you thinking about what your work is and what the best translation of your work is in a photographic form for a portfolio.
Yeah. I mean, for us, I feel like it's whatever, the best way you can tell your story in pictures is, and I agree, putting your best foot forward. There's no prescription to this. We're looking also, I think, for potential, a potential of a vision of a life, of a way of looking at the world, a point of view, and a reflection of that in pictures. And only you know what that your best argument is in terms of your own story, really.
Great. Can you talk a little bit about, each of you involves your students in your process somewhat. And I think coming from, I worked in admissions in 4 other schools before I came here to Yale about 2 years ago, and that was one of the most different things about the process. So, and I love that you all involve students because it's such a small and intimate group once the new people get here. But could you each talk a little bit about how you see that?
You mean department, like how we deal with the department dynamics and things?
Or
like
no,
that?
how you
The
involve
admissions
students in the
process.
admission process?
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
So in our first round, we do 2 rounds, and I think pretty much everyone does the same thing, an initial round of looking at all the applications, and then culling it down to 30 in the case of sculpture. And in the first round, we have all the first-year graduates looking with us as we project images, as we pull quotes maybe from statements or letters of recommendation. And then the students don't have specifically an individual vote or say, but as a group, they will make their list of who they feel would be exciting to have as colleagues, as work that they're interested in, and then we will compare lists and then make a list from the 6 faculty who do this, and then the 1 student group who do that. The first year is the 11. And it's not mandatory for them because it is a very intense focus process that is also, can be also hard to negotiate, the idea that they were just their last year, so to speak, doing the application. But we try to contextualize it so that we're looking at the quality of the work and not necessarily anything about personality or those kind of factors within the analysis of the work. So they're involved pretty much in the first round, and then less so in the second round when you actually are on campus.
Within painting, we have a faculty committee, which is made up of the full-time faculty within the department, and then we also have 2 students who are on the committee, 1 from each degree year, and those students are elected by their classmates. So they're nominated and then elected to represent the first-year class and the second-year class. So there are 2 students in the room as we're looking at the portfolios and reporting back on reading statements and reading letters, and so they're voting. They have a vote. They each have a vote amongst the faculty committee is about I would say 7 people, and 7 people this year and 2 students. So they're involved, and they also hear. They're involved through the process up until almost the very end. So they hear. After interviews, the faculty you interview will write comments and give a synopsis of how the interview went. And the students will listen again in on our, the students don't interview, but they will listen to our feedback, and those 2 students will also vote. And then we are kind of like whittling it down to a smaller and smaller group, and then the very final decision is made by the faculty in terms of who are those 20 or 22 people who get admitted. That final decision is made by the faculty committee, but we are taking into the students have had a consequence on the process up until that point, and we're taking into account their feedback and their points of view. We also have a very involved interview process, which involves bringing work onto campus and interviewing in front of physical work so that we can see the physicality and the materiality of the work is important, and some of that gets lost in the images. So we've maintained a commitment to seeing the work in person at that stage. And we have work study students within the department who help to hang the work, etc., will help you pack up the work, and so that you will get to meet, both today, but also if you were to be invited to an interview, you would get to meet more students that way. So it's a more informal kind of interaction you have, which is helpful because you can ask questions, and you can have that interaction with them through the process.
So we have a preliminary digital review, about 8 faculty who teach, both teach it in the preliminary year and the first year and the second year are all there. And also all the students who want to be there are there. So we are all in one room, and all the images come up, and they're up for about 5 seconds. Is it 4 or 5 seconds? 3?
Cruel.
So we're between 3 and 5. At any rate, we look at we have a first impression, basically, of all the work that's shown, and the students we have each have a sheet that goes from 0 to 4. It's basically 0 is like no way, Jose, and 4 is I really want that person to be here because I want to work with them. And if you don't know which it is, you sort of put it in the middle, kind of thing. And we count up all of the student votes separately from the faculty, and usually we invite to be interviewed the top 10 that appear in both of those groups. The interviews are done again with faculty members. We usually have just about 3 faculty members who talk to the students. The students sign up to see whoever they want to see, so that everyone who is either on Skype or is physically in front of you gets to be interviewed by at least 2 students. And those students also fill out a form about whether they would like to work with that person or not, and why, so that we have some of the sense of what it is that they are valuing around it. And we've done it this way for a really long time. It feels like we could change it. There's no way to do this that's perfect. I should bring up an issue, though. I don't know if other people have had this experience. We do a fair number of Skype interviews because quite a few of our students just can't come for an interview in body because they live too far away and don't have the money to come, and so they're done on Skype.
Mostly like overseas people, right?
Yeah, it's just, hey, it takes a lot of money to get here, so they need to do it that way. We've had issues where people have submitted work that's not theirs, And I need to tell you that I'm very good at smelling that out.
I think that's very rare, but
It's rare, but it does happen. It happens a lot in architecture too. It's just, it's tempting because you want to come. So you take a couple of posters that someone else did.
Wow.
At any rate, this has happened, and don't do it because we're good at figuring out that it's not yours. But there was another thing that seems peculiar to our situation.
Detective de
I can't remember
Bretteville.
right now what it is.
Well,
But
if Gregory wants to
Yeah.
talk,
Oh,
then if you think of it, we can go back to it.
Firstly, I think the admissions review is among the most important things we do over the course of the year because it defines the class. And one of the things that is so important to the program is the community of the first and second year students. So like I think everyone else, the first year class is part of the entire process, although only the faculty read the applications, which is confidential.
Yeah.
So the students are only present for the digital slide review. And we also ask that if they are going to be involved, that they're involved from the beginning to the end, because we want that full commitment. And
we sort of don't want phones in the room to take
Absolutely no
surreptitious
phones.
pictures or
and
start Googling.
we actually have our students sign a confidentiality agreement because of the just what's at stake in terms of how seriously we take the integrity of the
Yeah.
process.
That's true.
And so it's a similar kind of review, and from sort of the larger group, we select 20 to 25 for individual interviews, where those are, I think, of central importance, where we actually see the actual prints at a fairly small scale, but it's really important to have that conversation and dialogue with the candidate. And so that's our general process.
Great, thank you so much. I was going to have one other question, but I think we should open it up now to the audience to ask some questions. So we have Sarah is going to read some questions in a minute from the virtual audience. But does anybody in this audience have questions? And really quick, sorry, let me just back up. Two things. David Blackman, who's our Director of Student Financial Services, is going to talk after the panel, and he's going to go through the entire process of applying for financial aid. So the faculty actually don't have anything to do with that, and we do have a need-blind admission process. So they won't be able to answer questions about funds and scholarship. That's the first thing. And then, as mentioned, the program breakouts are going to focus more about actually being here, and right now the panel is more about applying. So just want to make that clarification. Okay. Do we have a question? Back there, if you could just stand up, and there's a mic. Sorry, I'll come around and do the mic.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes?
Yeah.
Fine? Okay. My name is Dashawn Anderson from Connecticut. I got a two-part question.
Yeah,
I'm sorry?
that's good.
Oh, okay, here we go. My name is Dashawn Anderson. I'm from Connecticut. As a two-part question, can you talk about the class structure? How often are the classes? What's like creatively involved? Is it intensive? Is it something that I can actually raise a family and go to the MFA? course? And the second part is, can you talk about the Yale methodology
Is
and
that
design? Sorry, graphic design.
graphic design?
I thought we were going
Um,
to, I think, this is probably a question that we should do together when we were in the graphic design area. Because
Yeah.
The thing, because every student has a different program. It's based on what they're interested in. So there's only one class that's required besides the critical practice class. And I think that's part of our pedagogy. So maybe it's really better to leave it for the
Yeah, I think so. We don't want to confuse you guys also, because if everyone's giving answers about the way pedagogy is approached, it's better for once we break it out. So we'll definitely answer that question when we get to the breakout. You can be the first one. But if anyone has questions about the process of preparing themselves and applying and everything,
But
we'll.
to answer your question, yes, it is intense.
It's very intense. Let's see, right here in the red shirt. Yeah, that's you. Oh, sorry. David, could you do them? Or Sarah, there you go. Sarah has one good
down here.
arm. She's going to use it to do the mic. Thanks, Sarah.
Is that red?
I just wanted to review, this is this is a digital submission, and so once it's going to be submitted, when we're talking about portfolios, I'm guessing that this is just going to be just an uploading of images onto the website, and that would be it. I mean, it's going to be like almost maybe completely digital, nothing about mailing in anything,
You
correct?
don't, no, you
Right.
don't mail anything in. The portfolio is uploaded through our online application system. You upload files that are in whatever format based on if they're moving or still, that's all laid out in the application as well as on the website. I should mention that there is a hierarchy of order built within the system that we cannot change. And what happens is everything goes into in a chronological order for the date that you put into each image.
So the representation piece would be like the last thing I submit, because it'd be the first thing you see in the end?
Well, you get to pick what your representative image is, but what happens is you put everything in, and don't vex yourself about the order and the way it looks, because if those images all have different dates, as soon as you go to upload it, it's going to reorder them in the chronological order of the date that the piece was made that you put in there. Does that make sense? So it's going to sequence the work from newest to oldest, or, yeah,
Okay.
okay.
So when I submit it, it would be like, this will be chronologically ordered based on when I specified when I
Yes.
made this?
Yes.
That's it? Okay, cool.
Yes,
Thank you.
okay.
We have a question from the live stream.
From the live stream.
This actually has been asked for all departments. In your areas, do folks coming right out of undergrad often apply to the program, and are they successful? If they're often further out from undergrad, what are they doing in between undergrad and graduate school?
I'll answer for our department. There's no hard and fast rules about this, but I think there's a tendency for us to feel that we're maybe less likely to accept someone directly out of undergrad, because we want to, it goes back to my first note on this, is that we want to get a sense that this is really there's a real commitment to this is what they want to do as an endeavor in life. And it's important to experience some life directly out of academia, and that will usually help dictate not only the work, but also their readiness to go back to school.
I have pretty much the same point of view that you have. I do know that there are people who are in certain countries where, having finished school, there isn't a way to engage the community that they're in, because there aren't either companies that they can work with, or they don't have enough other people they can join together and make a firm and then go out and do things together. So there are other things that are at work depending on where you're applying from that make us break the rule of not anybody straight from school.
To
In general, we want more mature students because they have really been thinking about what they're doing and have a really good reason for why they want to go back to school.
To answer the question, Sarah, specifically about whether or not they get in or not, you can. But what happens within the portfolio process is that we see that people who have been working longer, maybe, so to speak, make more individual, interesting work that's more vital to them than maybe you've done in school. You've had some chance. So it's usually that the portfolios tend to be stronger if you've been out for a few years.
Wow, that evoked a lot of hands.
Tara, did you want to call out people? How about over here by the wall?
That's too late. Go ahead.
And then you can go. You can go, then you can go. Everybody can't go,
You
but.
can't
Take it away.
take it away.
My question is about the statement. I was just thinking that when you're writing an artist statement, you can't help but think about your audience that you're writing to. And I was wondering if it would be the best approach to write a more personal statement, because you know your audience is going to be a small group of people reading it, or a more public or professional statement. Thank you.
It's a little bit of both, but I would say it's more a statement about your work than it is about you as a person. So I think when we're reading the statement, we're also sort of comparing to the work, and we're like, do these two things correlate? You know, and sometimes you read a statement that sort of seems to have nothing to do with the work, and that's not reassuring. And then other times you read a statement and you sort of see the work and it makes sense. The person is actually addressing the work, and that is more reassuring for us. So I think, you know, it's the specificity of the statement, because it's so brief, it's not a long statement, is important, and to sort of talk about the development of the work and the ideas within the work, and that may very much intersect with your person and your
Life
experience.
Yeah.
But, you know, we don't want to hear about everything that ever happened to you since you were 5 years old. You know, it's
Definitely
really
not that.
It's really focused on what you're doing now.
But I would add, for us, we're really looking for why now? Why you want to do it now?
That's good. Yeah.
I think that would be shared, in addition to the aspects of the work that you'd like us to pay attention to. We really need to know that why this is the right moment for you.
Okay, thanks.
Good afternoon. My question is, can each of you speak about the actual letters of recommendation?
I can say that I'm not as enthusiastic as Taryn is about letters of recommendation. I mean, sometimes.
So should you be speaking about them then?
Well,
If you're not so enthusiastic, are you the right
well,
person to be
it's-
talking about it?
I'll tell you why. Maybe that's enough to know. It's more that the same faculty member or same person writes for 5 different people and says pretty much the same thing, and therefore I don't trust that person. And one of them is a famous artist who I really admire and know and like, but he does that every year, and it just doesn't make it meaningful.
I will respectfully disagree that there are people who write pro forma letters, and if you've read enough letters, the thousands, you can recognize those versus someone who's writing a genuine letter who knows the person, knows maybe about their work ethic, their ability to be in a community, and speaks to those things. I think we find them important in sculpture. And we know, and we can, as Sheila pointed out, we can sniff out the ones that just seem very by the book and not really, they don't know the person.
Where it's very useful is when there's something unusual going on, where you see something unusual, and you look among the letters to see if they're can help. You have a reason for why the work might have, like if you look at a transcript and you see that somebody was doing very, very well and then suddenly is not doing very well, or vice versa, sometimes those letters make it clearer what happened in that person's life that would have caused it. So there are moments, it's just that in general, it's not my favorite way of knowing you.
It's also can provide some insight in terms of who you, as an artist, had decided to speak on your behalf.
Yes.
That's also important. That gives us a sense of who you believe are going to be your advocates. And that says something not only about the person writing it, but about yourself and your decision making.
Great. Sarah, do you want to do one more from the global audience?
Sure, I'd love to. So we've had
Such a nice-
actually a lot
boy,
of questions.
You have a great voice.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Great day.
There's a
Sarah
floating-
Stevens-Morling, that's our other
Floating toward
assistant
us,
dean
yeah.
back there for
Assistant
communications.
dean and voice actor.
Yeah.
So we've had a lot of questions about how interdisciplinary artists function within the programs and are supported, specifically painters who might work in sculpture as well, photographers working in moving image. Wondered if you all could speak a little bit about how those interdisciplinary practices work in your areas.
It's a great question. I mean, in painting and printmaking, we are a large department. We have 43 students within our department. And I would say that the students within our department are not all necessarily making only paintings. People are making other things because they may come in making paintings or may have a history with painting, but when they get here, they may open up and their practice may change and they may work outside of the medium. I think our faculty has a grounding within painting and its materiality and its history, but we also have people on the faculty who are not painters for that reason, that we know many of the people coming in may be pushing the boundaries of medium and medium specificity. So, we are very painting-centered, and that can be sometimes frustrating to people who kind of leave painting in the middle of the program. But we try to balance it so that we have people at reviews who are coming from a different point of view. So we're always kind of playing that game, but everybody who applies generally sort of is thinking about medium specificity in some way, even if it's in challenging it. And I would also say that we have students from the other departments come to our weekly critique, and vice versa. So students from the painting printmaking department will go to the photography and the sculpture critiques, and they will also take courses within those departments and work with somebody in those departments through the seminars that are offered. So there is opportunity on the student level to kind of interact with some of the other departments to kind of fill in. And I'm always sort of in a studio visit, if somebody is very much working outside of the medium, I'm always thinking about what we're not giving them in the department and how that can be supplemented by other people, either at the School of Art or at the university, and trying to recommend people that they can kind of go to kind of fill in. So we try to provide that within the department, and when we don't, we try to kind of give you the resources to find it.
Thank you. Does anyone else answer that? I'm going to go here on the periphery again.
Hi, this is just a follow-up question to the previous one about interdisciplinary artists. Would you have any advice for interdisciplinary artists who are applying and putting together their portfolio, and how they might organize that in a way that can be reflected helpfully in the work?
I believe that work would be done in the statement, in a way, to kind of make a presentation of like how you look at your work, and then of course what work you put in would be also depending on which department you are applying to. If you're, I think that I wouldn't apply to painting with just all sculptural work and multimedia work. I don't think that, not that it wouldn't be looked at upon, but it might not be, there might be other candidates who, are the more attractive or more appropriate at the point. But I think the work that you're talking about is about the statement that I think has to make a cohesive argument about what you're doing and why and the reasons. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah. That's right.
Okay. Do you know that? Get another question. Here, I'm going to get a question back here.
Hi, my name is Jill. My question is about what's your advice for professional people like designer and art director? They want to do further study or like pursue their degree in MFA or design.
Well, it makes a lot of sense makes a lot of sense to you to change what you have been doing and to focus more on yourself and what you would do if you didn't have all those demands from others on you to do what they want you to do. So but to come here and try to continue to be who you were before doesn't make any sense. So there's going to be some change, and that leads to this notion of interdisciplinarity. I mean, I've had at least one student who became a performance artist while she was here and came in as a graphic designer. When you are really asking yourself, what is it you want to do, you will find out that you are not going to be so singular necessarily. And so it's not predicted. I can't predict who you'll be at the end of 2 or 3 years. And I think it's unfair to yourself to think that you're going to aim for one particular route through all of this, because you have so amazing the number of people in each of our programs. They come from all over the place, and they do all different kinds of things, and they do things together. I mean, one of our graduates, Eddie Opara, who works for Pentagram, worked with Do Ho Suh when he was in sculpture, and they still are connected. There is a kind of synergy that doesn't really seem real when you break us out into disciplinary specificity only, but rather that this is a community in which people cross over. And hardly anybody does the same thing after they've been here. They did exactly. Why would they come if you were doing the same thing and just continue to do it? So this is a place where you come to change. You don't know what that change will be.
Thank you.
You can do one more, and we'll do one more, and then
So this
we're
is
going to have to
last-
move on to David because he's here. And just to
David.
say, you can all ask your questions in the panels of students, of us later. You'll have other opportunities today. We obviously can't get to all of them, but.
So we have a question here about how much information you'd like to have in the image descriptions of the portfolio section. Is that something you review? How much is too much?
That seems more programmatic kind of a question, program by program, no?
You know.
Just for sculpture, we like the descriptions to really go to the point of what you're showing and really guide us through if it's a really difficult situation of viewing because of the difficulty of the installation, and that actually you can't photograph the lasers in it, and so you say that there are lasers included, and it's image by image, but we don't want superfluous material, like too much jaw bending, lip flapping.
Yeah, I think sometimes like it's a little bit like the composite image, like you think, oh, here's another place where I can get in like a second statement or something.
Yes.
Like it's really not meant for that. It's really meant for what is specific to that image. There's no other place to get that information except in the description. There's something very particular about that work that we need to know in order to kind of understand what we're looking at.
Also, just make a curve for you,
Sheila,
too.
we can't hear you. You got to put your mic closer.
Something must have happened.
You just got to put it closer to your face.
This part. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to address the people who do video, who come in doing video as part of what we do, because there will be someone of the faculty who will watch the whole thing. But when we're looking at all those students, we're going to sort of do a few seconds at the beginnings, a few seconds in the middle, a few seconds at the end, in that first voting thing that goes on. So I wanted to make sure that you understand that video takes time. Surprise, surprise. And so we're looking for ways to make sure that someone has really looked at the whole thing, but that everyone cannot look at the whole thing.
Great, thank you. Okay, we can take one more question because I know that doesn't seem like a lot, but we've got to move on to financial aid. So who still has a question that they would like to ask?
Burning question, burning question.
Big responsibility.
Yeah.
Hi, so I have a question. I guess if you've been making one kind of work for a while and then now you're making a very different kind of work, I know you want to see recent work, but do you want to see some of that history and like what came before?
How long ago
no?
are you talking about?
I mean, not decades, but you know, like maybe 5-6 years.
I mean, I think it, for our program, for sculpture, yes, like it isn't, but really we want to see the last 3 years
Okay.
more intensely.
Okay.
And if you've been out of school especially, what you've done this year.
Okay.
We want to see evidence that you're a working artist,
Yeah.
you know.
Okay.
Thank you. Let's give it up for the directors of graduate study.
No, thank you. It was great.
Thank you, Karen.
See you sculptors. See you sculptors in a half hour or so.
What now?
I was just,
Oh,
I was
yeah,
just saying,
don't-
see the sculptors in about half hour.
Okay, yeah, don't get up. Nobody else get up besides you guys. All right. Thank you. Okay, so without further ado, sorry that went a little longer. I'm gonna invite up David Blackman, who is my colleague and the Director of Student Financial Services at the Yale School of Art. And he's gonna talk with you guys about the process of applying for your funding. Here you go. David, you're gonna use that mic, okay? Thanks. The one that's on the podium. Yeah, we have.
How you guys doing? Yeah, rocking crowd. All right. So yes, I'm here to talk about funding your time here at the Yale School of Art. Definitely hold your questions to the end. I'm sure I will probably answer most of the questions that arise as I go through. So bear with me. Did I miss one? Sorry, it doesn't look like it's moving. Is it?
This is the one that is up.
Yeah, it didn't look like it was moving, so I couldn't tell if it was. Is this the first slide? All right.
There you go.
Okay,
So, no, so you're on your name, so your name is here,
gotcha.
and then you go like that. So
Oh.
just arrow.
All right, sorry about that. Technical difficulties. So applying is probably the biggest question that everybody has. Basically, all applicants, domestic, foreign, whoever, if you're interested in financial aid, you're going to complete a CSS profile. No matter where you're from, no matter what you're doing, if you're considering scholarship, if you want scholarship, you have to fill out the CSS profile. It's the one piece of information that I will look at when, basically coming up with an award for you. If you are a domestic student, you will also complete a FAFSA. So you will need to do a FAFSA. If you're an international student, we have a form called International Certification of Finances. It's a paper form. It'll be available in January. You can download it straight from the website. and you'll need to submit that plus the CSS profile. All students will also need to submit student and parent 2018 tax returns or income statements if you're not a domestic student. So keep that in mind. When you're filling out the CSS profile, you need to provide parental information, but you do not need to provide parental information for the FAFSA, which is a big question that I always get. So keep that in mind. Everything is available as of right now. You can go on, fill out the CSS profile. You can fill out the FAFSA right now. The only thing that's not available right now is the International Certification of Finances. That form, like I said, won't be available till January. When you're filling these out, please do not omit parental income information without speaking to me. I have a lot of students that go, oh, well, I'm 30 or whatever, and I don't need to submit parental information because I'm independent. That is not the case. We actually require parental information from every student, no matter how old you are, whether you're married, whether you have children, it doesn't matter. We still require parental information from everyone. So if you complete a form and you do not submit parental information, it is incomplete. And I will tell you that if you're admitted and I review your application. So just a heads up. We do have waivers, and we do, obviously, there are certain circumstances where we understand that parental information cannot be obtained. Like if your parents are deceased, or if you're estranged from your parents, or there's some sort of abuse situation or something. All of these scenarios obviously are case by case. Definitely talk to me before you complete a financial aid application and don't submit this information because, like I said, I won't look at the information until it's complete unless I know that there's some sort of reason why that information is missing. So keep that in mind. So we do practice need blind admission. People are always curious what their financial aid award is going to be, and a lot of people will ask me or try to get like an estimate or a ballpark or something out of me, but it doesn't happen until you're admitted. I don't look at applications until they come up with the final admissions list. We get 1,000 applications, and so it wouldn't be advantageous for me to go through, since I am the only person in the financial aid office, and try to calculate or guesstimate or give you some sort of approximation of what your award might look like. It's I don't want to say it's a waste of my time, but it ultimately would be sort of fruitless for a lot of people, especially if there's some information that I don't have access to at the time. I could give you a number and then it might not be accurate, and then I'd have to go back and do it all over again. So if you are admitted, we do send out financial aid awards within the first 10 days. I tend to go through all the applications, look at all the information, review everything that I have, and then come up with an award for you within the first 10 days. Obviously, I know financial aid is probably like the big decider for a lot of people. So my job is to try to make sure that that award goes out as quickly as possible. The best bet that you can do is just make sure that everything is submitted and completed before you're before you're admitted. That way, I'm not chasing you down to try to get certain pieces of information. It just slows down the awarding process. I do not know, I don't communicate, I don't talk to anyone in the admissions process. All the DGSs make their decisions regardless of me, so they make their decisions based on your portfolio, your work, your statements, all of that information they take into account, but they do not look at finances. We don't have a conversation, we don't talk. Our offices are completely separate, so if you're admitted because they felt you merited admittance, but unfortunately they don't look at finances, so I do, and they don't have any sway in the process for determining your award or anything like that. So completely need blind. So I have this conversation a lot. We're calculated need. So a lot of people assume that, hey, I want scholarship, therefore I need it, which is unfortunately not how it works. We have a formula that we apply towards everyone equitably, so that way, we know that we're giving out money to students who we deem needy. And so that combination of need can amount in, you receiving scholarship, loans, work study, and a student and or parent contribution. We do expect that all students will contribute towards their own education, but about 50% of our students don't have a parent contribution, so you shouldn't be concerned about submitting parental information and seeing that make a change, because ultimately most parents don't meet the thresholds that we set. So keep that in mind. The maximum first year award currently is up to 100% tuition scholarship. So that means there are a few students that qualify in our first year right now that are receiving a full tuition scholarship. That doesn't mean everyone qualifies for a full tuition scholarship, and it doesn't mean if you have need that's what it's going to be. There are, the scholarship amount could vary in between, nothing all the way up to, full tuition. In the second year, we try to increase awards, so we try to give you a little bit more scholarship. So we cover tuition, plus we cover a little bit of books and living expenses, things like that. So if there is need in your second year, you can see a little bit of a bump in your scholarship. And that's pretty much it. Questions? I think somebody has a question.
Hi, David. I'm Charles from California. I just had a question about finances in terms of income. Are you just looking at income as an arbitrary number or in comparison to cost of living? I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, to give you some context.
I got you.
Rent's $3,000.
I got you. There's a long answer and a short answer. The long answer is that College Board actually does a living expense equalizing. It equalizes it based on where you live in the country and based on your zip code. So it spits out a number based on, how, if you live in Ohio, obviously the rent is not $3,000. So, it's going to look at that and take that into consideration. But I can tell you the short answer is I don't look at income for students because you guys don't generally make enough while you're here to contribute. So I don't consider, if you're making $20,000 now, obviously you're not going to be making $20,000 while you're here. So how could you contribute to that? So
Can you contribute if you make $20,000?
Yeah. I mean, well, again, that depends on where you live.
Right.
But everybody's going to be living in New Haven. I assume. I don't know how you would commute from San Fran, but generally I don't really look at income unless it's really, really up there. Most artists that come in have a generally low income or within a range. Within a range. It's within a range. It's not anything astronomical. Most of the students that do come in that are making a good salary or that have, maintained a high standard of living don't apply for aid. And that's just real.
We still think you should just apply for admission and apply for aid, and you can always see what happens.
Absolutely.
And decide from there.
Absolutely. I always say focus on getting in, and then, you know, that's the, you know, that's the first thing, and then we can deal with anything financial after that. And I'm very open and I'm very transparent, and you know, I'm very communicative about the process and why you got what you got. And if you want to ask questions about anything, I definitely will definitely talk about your award, you know, in great detail if you need me to.
Okay, other questions for David? Okay. Let's go here and there.
Thanks. Do you provide merit-based scholarships, or is it just all need-based?
It is all need-based.
If you get in, you have the merit, right?
That's
Actually, I just want to say one other thing. This is why we don't give fee waivers, because we really don't want to know in the admission process if you have need or not. We don't want it to be part of it at all. So, and I've worked at other institutions, that's not the case everywhere. A lot of times need and the sort of like ability, or how it looks, ability to pay can factor into admission decisions, so.
When you're talking, oh wow, that's loud. When you're talking about the parent contribution versus like you have to give your parents info, how does that apply to like say the parents who raised you didn't technically adopt you versus absentee parents?
It depends.
So like whose info are you supposed to give?
Okay, so this is a really long answer. If you were adopted by like a family member before the age of 18, generally you're still gonna need to supply parental information. Guardians generally, I would say, need to supply information. It all depends on when it happened and who the person is that is, you know, I have parents where, you know, one of the parents deceased and then they remarried and that person adopted the child and like is treated as the parent. Like I couldn't tell you 100% without knowing the situation.
A lot of this is very much based on personal circumstance.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna do one more question, then we gotta get you guys over to the building.
No online questions?
First question, I have two questions too. I'll try to be brief. Okay, so do you have to renew the?
Yes, you have to reapply every year.
Okay, is there room to accommodate sudden life changes? So, for example, if a student's financial background changes, does the financial aid answer to those needs, the change in need? And is it possible to, like, for example, if the student has to leave school all of a sudden because of a family emergency, how would that affect the financial aid process?
So you need to reapply every year. If you left the school and came back, you'd have to reapply for financial aid. Changes in circumstances, they're really very rare. I generally see it more with parents than I do with students. If you had $100,000 in the bank and you came here your first year and spent $100,000, would you really expect me to replace that? So like that's we try to build for, you know, emergencies and changes for students, but ultimately there isn't really room, or there's not really something that could happen between your first and second year that would make your finances change that much that wouldn't be explainable as just you making a decision to, you know, liquidate all of your funding. If that makes sense. Sarah?
We had a question about the timing. Do people who apply earlier in the process have a better chance of getting aid, or is it all reviewed later?
So I mean, I have a budget. So I have a budget, and I spend according to my budget, and I always have one person that applies after like June, and I always have enough for them. But I would say your goal is to apply if you want it early. Apply early. Don't expect that like it's guaranteed. We do try to make accommodations, and we do try to, meet need for everyone, obviously. But I have to plan for the year, and there comes a certain point where ultimately, like, I can't spend something that I don't have. So if I have 5 students that decide right now in the year, hey, I want to apply for financial aid, and hey, I need a full tuition scholarship, I honestly couldn't afford it. And certain, just logistically, I think the school would find a way, but ultimately, we expect you guys to apply on time and sort of plan for being here early on.
Also, if you get admitted, you have usually until the first week of April to commit to enrollment, and you'll probably want to know before you commit what the financial picture is. So ergo, you finish applying earlier. So.
Yeah, I mean, I do, like I said, there's going to be someone that gets admitted that didn't attend this open house and then didn't watch the live stream, and they're going to assume that financial aid is just part of the admissions process, but it's not, unfortunately. It's completely separate. We have tons of people, or not tons of people, but we have a decent amount of people that apply for admission that never apply for financial aid. Most students do, but don't assume that because you got admitted that you're getting financial aid too. They're two separate processes.
But most people do, right?
Yeah, most people do.
90% get some kind of financial aid.
Yeah. I think 87% of the students that are admitted receive some sort of financial aid. And the 13% that don't are most of them didn't apply for something. That's the only reason why they didn't get anything. Yeah.
Thanks. Let's give it up for David. All right. I'm sure you guys are ready to get out of these chairs. Just want to go through a couple housekeeping items. Also, please don't get up. Please don't get up yet. You put on your coats, but we're going to do this in very orderly fashion. Also, sorry our live stream of the beach was in and out. We tried to do something experimental, and that happens in art and design. So again, no portfolio reviews or personalized advice. You just saw even as the Q&A went, like some questions are so specific to people that we can't always answer them right now at this phase, but keep asking questions as you go through the day. That's what you're here for. Please know that if you are going to be going through, we do have work up in a show in the gallery, as we mentioned. It's the first year group show. That is a public viewing. That's a public show. If you are going through students' studios today, please respect that these are their personal workspaces and they may have works in progress. Please don't photograph those works in progress. Share, you can post and share on social that you're here all day long, but just please respect the space and the work of our current students. And then this evening, later back here, right in this space, the School of Art is co-hosting a talk with Wangechi Mutu and Howardina Pendel and Kevin Beasley. If anyone's staying late, you may want to try to get into that. That will be after. That'll be at 5:30. So lastly, the application deadline, please make note of that. Please apply on time. And we are going to break you out now. In fact, we have a bunch. Look at this group. Look at them. Look at this group of our first year students. You guys are the best. They're going to escort you in groups to the breakout locations. So we're going to have to do this quickly. But sculpture. Anyone here for sculpture? Wait, let's have you guys identify yourselves really quick. Freddie and Sejun. You see those guys? All right, so everyone else stay seated. Only people here for sculpture, please get up and you'll follow Sejun and Freddie at the back of the room, okay? Thank you guys. We'll see you later. Everybody else just hang out for another minute. because sculpture has the farthest way to go. Okay.